Shalom Chavrim, I'm Steve Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and guys, we do have a very sensitive subject this evening. 5G technology, the dangers of it. Shalom to everybody that's already in the room here. I see we got a small group thus far. Don't know if YouTube wants anybody to know you guys are there or not, but it's quite all right. Anyway, I'm glad to see all of you guys, a few of us that are here. There's a 0 watching on my end, but I'm sure there's more than that. I can see that already in the room. Wow, now they say there's 4 of you guys. Must be about 100 of you guys at least. Anyway, let's get right into the things that are going on here. And I'll tell you what, before I get into the 5G, let me just bring up the speed on some news that's going on that I'm kind of watching myself. As you guys are, I'm sure, very much aware, and I'm sure many people wondering what I would be thinking about some of these things here. Benjamin Netanyahu meeting with Prince William, who is in Israel. Wonder why. And of course, I guess that's no different than Jared Kushner just being there, just killing it on the Israel-Palestinian peace trip, quite literally snuffing it out, according to the New York Times article that they brought out there. And I have a feeling the reason why we have some of these big names here in Israel is because they're getting ready to announce the two-state solution. And I don't think Mahmoud Abbas has got a whole lot to say about it to begin with. It's going to be whatever it's going to be. And I am very much interested to see if those leaks are going to pan out to be so. I personally think that they're probably accurate to some degree. Whether or not we ever get to know truly what is really in the peace deal or not still remains to be seen. Whether or not they're going to confess that the United Nations force is going to be overseeing the old city of Jerusalem, who knows? But you know what's kind of interesting? Think about it. I want to show something to you guys real quick there. This is just something that really gets me here. The Google Maps here. It's everything that Google Maps is doing is kind of letting you know what's going on in the future. Kind of like as I brought out to you guys before. Just zoom in here to Jerusalem. And as you can see on the back here, I don't know how well you guys can see that. I can see it plain as day. The little dotted lines, right, going through here and stuff. This is the Israeli side, the armistice agreement line. Now they call it 1949 line. Interesting, right? No, in 1949, let me tell you something. This was not given to the Jewish people. So sorry, I hate to tell you that. It was a West Bank. In fact, the old city of Jerusalem is the only place there that was actually part of that agreement where they were going to give make Jerusalem an international city, unless they're talking about all of this here too. Who knows? Anyway, we can see though that they have moved inside of the West Bank. They have now put over here the very neighborhood I used to live in, Givat Hamivitad, is now inside of there. They added this word here, 1949 Armistice Agreement line, that used to not be written on Google Maps. I guess we caused too much trouble for them by pointing out what they're doing. And another thing that's kind of interesting, as I shared with you guys yesterday when we were talking about Neom, that city Neom down here, is that another landmark that was never on the map before. And that is Jabal El-Az. And hang on, we'll get it to pop up here in just a second. Got to get it just right in here. There it is. Jabal El-Az. Right there, was never considered a landmark before. You click on it there. It's kind of interesting because when they showed Jabal El-Az, they're showing like some kind of waterway. What's that all about? That's kind of weird, isn't it? This is supposed to be Jabal El-Az. Okay, there we go. We got some other pictures here, though. Got them standing over there. And of course, this is going to be the mountain where God speaks to Moses. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, this area right here may be considered to be the part that is Mount Horeb. I'm not really sure there. They got a lot of pictures in here, though. A lot of pictures that they're showing there. There it is. There you go, Jabal El-Az. There's the split rock, Penny and Jim Caldwell's picture there. Or at least somebody's picture. I don't know if it's Jim and Penny Caldwell's there. But they are definitely going to make this a landmark, and it is now in Google Maps. It is right, I call it, in the heart of Neom, this AI 5G technology city there. And I say that, let me tell you why, because if you look at the map there and then you look at the drawing, they put it like here, they show coming across here, back down and everything like that. Well, picture that being a human being just laying down like a square-chested person with the head on their body. Well, Jabal el-Laz is right in the area of the human heart. It would be right there. So it is in the heart. And I think they're going to be more focused on the pagan worship with their New World Order city that they're making there, but different issue altogether. So anyway, so we go back and we look at the idea that Benjamin Netanyahu meeting with Prince William. So many people think that he is the Antichrist. I know that. So for those of you that think he's the Antichrist, well, I'm sure you're really excited about him being in Jerusalem. I personally don't think he is, but hey, I never rule out anything. You never know. And of course, Kushner there, he's been hanging around for quite some time now. So they're getting ready for the announcement of Donald Trump's peace plan. And it's kind of interesting because Donald Trump gets thrown in there as the one to be the peace plan. But you got to understand, they made him Cyrus. After all, they're looking to make biblical prophecy fit biblical narrative. So they had to have a Cyrus somewhere. So Trump is definitely going to have something to do with the building of the third temple. But you know, it's funny. They never tell you that Cyrus worshipped Marduk as his god. Now, we have Ezra saying that it was Yahweh that had him, directed him to go back and allow the children of Israel to return to rebuild their temple. But when he wrote, had it inscribed on the Cyrus cylinder, which I've been there in Britain and wrote it there, he actually claimed that it was Marduk and one other god that had him do this. So, which one is which? Interesting. Now, there's no doubt that God had pulled his hand, but he never gave glory to God. He gave the glory to Marduk and one of his other pagan gods that he was serving. Also, another issue, too, the U.S., according to Russia-led coalition, evacuates 2 Daesh commanders from Syria's Hasaka, according to reports that are coming out. Very weird situation there. They're saying that the U.S. is, again, moving Daesh, ISIS leaders out of the area there. Very troubling scenario that we see keep coming out of the Middle East. And, of course, the Syrian government is definitely making pushes there to take the city of Dara. U.S. has told the militants that they've been supporting that they're not going to help them this time. They may not have to because Israel seems to be doing all of that. Israel hits Hezbollah arms depot in Syria. War Monitor says, in fact, what we understand is that the Israelis yesterday actually struck right at the Damascus airport, saying there was a cargo plane coming in that they took out there. So that's kind of like what some of the basic things that are going on. And I want to jump now back over here into this whole issue of 5G technology. And I know some people are really kind of not very happy because poor President Trump keeps getting thrown in the middle here. So let me just say it like this. All right, let's say it's the deep state and President Trump's a really good old boy and he's just too dumb to know what everybody's leading him into. He doesn't seem to really realize that all of his spiritual advisors are, well, what do you say? His spiritual advisors are all sucking up to the Pope of Rome. And by the way, let me see if I can pull this up. I was on Flashpoint today talking about the 5G and everything else, but I was told by Bonnie there that James Dobson just met with Pope Francis this past week, or was at the Vatican. Focus on the Family listed, that's October 2013. I'm really was curious about this because they say that Dobson was there at the Vatican this past week. So let me see if I can see if we can find any kind of news on this. I should have asked Bonnie to send that over to me because that was very interesting that this just came out. Let's see, let's carry the full authority of an official Vatican decree. It declares Rome, then Dobson and Coulson fly to Rome to discuss the issues on the... Oh, wow, maybe this is it right here. Let's just see here. I'm not, see, let's see, Watergate felon. Chet Colson wins the John Templeton Prize for creating Evangelical and Catholics Together agreement in 1984. He was awarded $1 million for that. Let's see here, where do we have Dobson in here? But anyway, the whole point was that James Dobson did go to Rome as well, from what I'm understanding. So it kind of ties all of these leaders together as working with the Vatican. Very troubling indeed. Very, very troubling indeed, guys, and to hear that. So my point is, all right, let's just say that Donald Trump really, even though he's president of the United States, is just too naive to realize that everything that's going on, the executive orders that he continues to sign, is totally not taking into consideration the health of the American public, the spying on our nation, the implementation of everything that he is doing. He's just totally kept in the dark, knows nothing about it. The deep state's doing everything. So I guess all of the evangelical leaders also must be all deep state operatives, because after all, remember that rapid response team that they have. What is that? What do they call that? You guys help me with that over there. They have, for the 501c corporations, ministers are part of a response team that will, the clergy, that will turn in their people when the New World Order goes into effect. So I have a feeling, seeing that most, probably 99% of the people that are on his evangelical board are all multimillionaires, I highly doubt they're willing to lose their multi-millions, so therefore they are going to go right along with the Vatican. Remember, the Pope said, your money won't save you. So they have definitely signed on. All these guys, John Hagee and all the rest of them, as we shared with you guys in that video just recently. Now, let's get into this. So this was really interesting. Tom Edison, he writes this here: can somebody please get a message to President Trump to sign an executive order to stop the 5G broadcasting before it gets fully deployed. Tell President Trump there has been no health danger testing by the government. Now, this guy's telling you the truth. Well, they tested it, but not for the health, right? To protect people, tell him it's a plot to destroy his health so he can no longer be president. Listen. Do you think they haven't taken into consideration they want to keep him healthy? They're just not telling you. Jeez, this goes over the head of most people, right? All right, now, biblically, wow. Oh, yeah, we're in here in Job. Is that where we were at? Yeah, Job 18. I got to share something with you, but I'm going to come back to the biblical side in a few minutes. Let's go over here to this here, though, first. This article here came out. Of course, Mr. Edison, as you already know, he signed the bill. The bill's already been signed, right? This one here says, Trump's new rural broadband executive order doesn't actually do much of anything. They're trying to play it down, right? You've probably noticed by now that the biggest problem in the U.S. broadband market is a lack of vibrant competition in many areas. This lack of competition over the last mile is a core reason for the majority of the problems in the sector, for privacy violations to net neutrality infractions. And while lawmakers from both parties adore paying empty lip service to making broadband faster, cheaper, and more available, very few have the courage to stand up to AT&T, Verizon, Comcast, and actually implement policies that improve our competitive options. So the article really goes into nothing when it comes to about your own health and secure safety concerns. But there are some articles, such as TechRepublic, that has come out and said some of the things that's really going on. Now, in this one here, though, it actually just talks about President Trump signing this. It says U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order to help bring broadband internet to rural areas of the U.S. Around 39% of the people living in rural areas don't have access to broadband internet. I don't think they really wanted it. Unless they're just dumbed down by all the GMO foods that they've been eating to begin with, which kind of makes me wonder, seeing as they've been doing the GMO foods, maybe they know that that survives the broadband radiation microwaves that are being put out to start with. But anyway, U.S. President Donald Trump signed the executive order to make it easier for the internet services providers to bring broadband internet to rural areas, which allowing it to build it on public access land. In reality, really the reason why they did that is so that for those of you that are planning on trying to escape the New World Order and you were thinking about using state land to do it on, because after all, the state does own miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of woods where some people could hide at, they made sure they're going to find you anyway. All right, so kind of you can throw that idea out the door. Not to mention they could increase the 5G technology and take you out even sooner. A more connected country could have several business implications. It would open a new market for ISPs and may be easier for advertisers to reach these audiences, as it could increase options for remote workers, whether they live in a rural area, traveling, or doing field work. Now, I know there's some people that hate it when I say this, but you know, it kind of reminds me of the pipeline that the Native Americans were protesting because of their drinking water, which everybody was all up in arms. When I said that, they said, oh no, they just wanted more money is what they wanted. They wanted more money. Well, you know what? Maybe most of them did, but I'm sure there's some of them that really cared more about their drinking water. And of course, after the big spill of the pipeline that destroyed a lot of the property there, nobody ever says anything else about that. But let's get into what 5G technology does do and what the dangers are. In 1998, 5 scientists employed by U.S. Army and Air Force Research Institutes published a seminal review of research on MMWs. They reported, this is what they reported, and the MMW, that is the microwave that is being used, the radioactive microwave that is being used by 5G technology. Increased sensitivity, even hypersensitivity of individual specimens of the MMW may be real depending on the exposure characteristics, especially wavelength. A low intensity MMW radiation was perceived by 30 to 80% of healthy examinees. Okay, some clinical studies reported MMW hypersensitivity, which was and was not limited to certain wavelength. Okay, that was in 1995. It is important to note that even with the variety of bioeffects reported, no studies have provided evidence that a low-intensity MMW radiation represents a health hazard for human beings. Actually, none of the reviewed studies with low-intensity MMW even pursued the evaluation of health risk, although in view of numerous bioeffects and growing usage of MMW technology, this research objectives seems very reasonable. In other words, they just didn't test for long-term health effects whatsoever. They did some testing, all right? Now, whoopee-doo, right? Let's see what actually happens though. Electric sense. They're going to talk about 5 radiation dangers, 11 reasons to be concerned. This is all about the 5G, right? Let's take a look. I'm going to zoom it in just a little bit. I want to make sure you guys can see the print on this a little better. I hope we get it big enough. 5G radiation dangers, right? Like it or not, we are rapidly moving into a world of 5G or 5th generation cellular telecommunication. By the way, you're going to go all the way up to 12G before it's over with, and that's where it's going to be stuck in your brain somewhere. Why? Because the frequency bandwidths used currently by cell phones and similar technologies are becoming saturated. And also because we live in a world where people want more 5G and Internet of Things that goes with it. Promises to give us more, but for what? Super fast download speeds. All right. So for those of you that enjoy online movies and would rather watch them from your toilet and need a 5G, that's what it's for, right? 5G and LOT promises to connect us in our homes, schools, workplaces, cities, parks, and open spaces to cover 1 trillion objects around the world. It promises cars that drive themselves, washing machines that order their own washing powder and softener, plus course super fast downloads and streaming. Sounds like that Neom city, right? Yeah, that's where we're headed to. Exactly. According to Fortune.com, 5G will support at least 100 billion devices and will be 10 to 100 times faster than current 4G technology. 4G was already at 10 times faster than 3G, but it'll bring down speed up to 10 gigabytes per second. This would let us have an entire building of people send each other data in a close to no time, thus improving productivity. Now, keep in mind, as we know from a biblical standpoint, when that great city that made the entire world wealthy, rich, and famous is being burned from a distance, and all the merchants of the world, including the shipmasters, are all mourning her death because she did what? Made the world rich by her delicacies. Now, there's always a big argument. Whose city is that really? I always maintained that it was Rome. There's a lot of people that believe it's Washington, D.C. Well, right now, Washington, D.C. definitely has not done it. But Trump has promised to make America great again. And by the way, this is one of the ways he's going to do it. Never mind your health, just kind of like those Indians out there. Forget those guys, it's their water, don't worry about it. We need the oil, we need the jobs, we need the money, do it anyway. You know, I was watching that documentary on Netflix about President Trump. You ought to watch it there. That guy was a pretty shrewd kind of guy. Didn't care about nothing. Interesting. All right, now I know everybody says, oh, he's a changed guy, he's a Christian, he's all that. Don't forget, you know, the people that said that he is a Christian are all these multi-billionaire evangelicals that are all taking you to the Pope of Rome. Is that really where you want to go? Is that really what you think it's supposed to be about? Are we supposed to be part of the ecumenical movement, the World Council of Churches, joining back up with the Vatican? I'll tell you what, let me show you guys something. This kind of gets me right here. All right, YouTube. All right, world leaders presented before the Pope. Evangelicals. Let's just kind of throw that in there, right? Now, this is Pope Benedict, but they did this with Pope Francis as well, but I just want to kind of give you a little taste of this, right? Here we go. Now,
Your Holiness, we represent Archbishop Kalyan Arsenian, primate of the Eastern Diocese of the Armenian Church in America.
wait a minute.
According to ecumenical protocol, the Eastern Orthodox would be first in order as they are.
Let me take you down a little further. That's some of the religious leaders being presented to the Pope of Rome, right? They all come, they all bow.
Holiness, may I present Reverend Wesley Granberg Michelson, the General Secretary of the Reformed Church in America.
Oh, he's part of the Reformed Church in America.
And Kirkpatrick, the stated clerk of the General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in the United States.
Presbyterian Church, right? Okay.
National Baptist Convention.
The National Baptist.
Of the International Pentecost Holiness Church.
Oh, the Pentecost Holiness Church. What do you know? Come over there. Thank you, Popeness.
Your Holiness, may I present Dr. Leith Anderson, President of the National Association of Evangelicals.
The Evangelicals representative is there too. Everybody sucks up to the Pope. I mean, has everybody forgot about Revelation where it says, you know, the great whore of Babylon? I mean, John Hagee knows. He used to preach about it all the time. Oh, I'm sorry, John, that's in the tribulation period, right? Jeez. I'm about ready to vomit. Anyway, let's get back over here. Oh, sorry, I hope I didn't offend anybody over here. Well, if I did, well, praise God, I hope everybody gets over it. Let's get back over here to what's going on. Now, so we were just talking about how the economy of this is going to be really great, but what is 5G? 5G offers mind-blowing data capabilities, practically unrestricted call volumes, and near infinite data broadcasts. It does this by 5G using largely untapped bandwidth of a millimeter wave, which is between 30 gigahertz and 300 gigahertz, as well as some lower and mid-range frequencies. By the way, this is one reason why they have to put so many of these towers, very short, very small, in your neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood, before you know it, you have about 3 of those just in your own neighborhood. Why? Because they got to have them pretty close together, about a quarter of a mile apart. That's why there's going to be so much money made. And do you know the people that are installing these are sworn to secrecy? Wireless cell antennas galore. Millimeter waves do not travel well through buildings, and they tend to be absorbed by rain and plants. By the way, when they're absorbed by rains and plants, guess what? You eat the plants, you eat the radiation, you're going to die from the radiation. This interferes with the signal. Added to this, high-frequency waves like MMWs also have much more shorter wavelengths that can travel far. To counter this problem, 5G will utilize smaller cell stations and technology beamforming that'll scramble, unscramble, and redirect packets of data and non-interface paths back to the U.S. This could mean wireless antennas on every lamp post, utility pole, home business throughout the entire neighborhoods, towns, and cities. See, we had an economic boom when they started the cellular phone service. Well, now you're going to have a whole new economic boom, and it's going to contribute to the Silk Road. But we're going to get into the problems now. Okay? Let me find it. The danger of 5G. 11 reasons to be concerned. The USA is currently leading the way on 5G at June 2016 press conference with the Federal Communications Commission. By the way, the testing they did do was all here in Eastern Europe. And every time we are here, Yana's blood pressure goes through the roof. My blood pressure even goes up above normal. And I don't normally ever have high blood pressure. It affects the ability for melatonin to be produced in the brain. That's why our daughter has sleep problems when she's here in Europe. Doesn't have them in America, but has them here. Our son has major rashes on his body. They just break out fairly frequently. No reason why, but it also causes that. Causes extreme fatigue. That's what I deal with on a regular basis. All right, now let's see what we have. Thousands of studies link low-level wireless radio frequency radiation exposure to a long list of adverse biological effects, including DNA single and double-stranded breaks, oxidative damage, disruption of cell metabolism, increased blood-brain barrier permeability. By the way, any of you guys that ever listen to Yana when she speaks about the glyphosate and how the doctors through the vaccines figured out a way to be able to go past the blood-brain barrier and get the glyphosate in there, which blocks the absorption of vitamin D to the body. Well, this also has been suggested that it will block the absorption of vitamin D that you get from the sun. So another major issue, which is a major contributor to cancer. Disruption to brain glucose metabolism, generation of stress proteins. Let's not also forget that in 2011, the World Health Organization classified radio frequency radiation as a possible 2B carcinogen. More recently, the 25 million National Toxicology Program concluded that radio frequency radiation of the type currently used by cell phones can cause cancer. Yes, that's right. But where does 5G fit into all of this? Given that 5G is said to utilize frequencies above and below existing frequency bands, 5G sits in the middle of all of this. But the tendency, it varies from the country to country, is for 5G to utilize the higher frequency bands, which brings it its own particular concerns. Here's my review studies done to the date, 11 reasons to be concerned. All right? Oh, I thought we were already into those. Denser soup of electromogs. We're going to be bombarded by really high frequency, low and short range intensities, creating a yet more complicated, denser soup of electromogs of this diagram shows. Won't get into all that, but you guys can see it. The effects of the skin. This is the one that's important. The biggest concern is how these new wavelengths will affect the skin. The human body has between 2 million to 4 million sweat ducts. Dr. Ben Ishai of Hebrew University, Israel, explains that our sweat ducts act like an array of helical antennas when exposed to those wavelengths, meaning that we become more conductive. A recent New York study which experimented with 60 gigahertz waves stated that the analysis of the penetration depth showed that more than 90% of the transmitted power is absorbed in the epidermis and the dermis layer, 2 layers of your skin down. All right? Not only that, they say if you are prone to having high heavy metals in your body, in other words, do you drink drinks out of aluminum cans? Do you, how many other things do we have? Cook out of frying pans that are made of aluminum? Well, yeah, you're all probably very highly toxic with heavy metals in your body, and you have just become a walking antenna to absorb all the cancer you possibly can. Now, they're talking about this stuff destroying the ability of your body to function normally. Even the nerve endings and stuff that are in your skin being destroyed by these constant effects of this radiation. It says the effects of MMW, as studied by Dr. Yale Stein of Hebrew University, is said also to cause humans physical pain as nociceptors flare up in recognition of the wave as a damaging stimuli. So we're looking at possibilities of many skin diseases, cancer, as well as physical pain to our skin. I also found out in one study that I looked at, I didn't bring everything up here, I tried to pick up the ones that would really do the best here, that also the 5G technology is going to cause the inability of things like antibiotics to work properly and causing those bad diseases in our body to flourish. Effects on the eyes. Affects your eyes. I won't go into all these experiments exactly, but just letting you know it causes those effects on the heart. 1992 Russian study found that the frequency is in the range of 53 to 78 gigahertz, which is what 5G is. Impact the heart rate variability. In rats, another Russian study on frogs whose skin was exposed to MMWs found heart rate changes. Yeah, Yana's heart rate even tonight is up high, very high. For me, it's hard to tell in heart rate. I've always had a rapid heart rate, but for my wife, she never had a rapid heart rate, always around 70. Now she's around 100. Immune system effects. 2002 Russian study examined the effects of the 42 gigahertz microwave radiation exposure to the blood-healthy mice. It was concluded that the whole body exposures of healthy mice to low-intensity EHF and EMR has a profound effect on the indices of the non-specific immunity. Effects on the cell growth rates. See? Future environment brought about by 5G. Their study conducted E. coli. That was one I was talking about. I didn't know he had it on his. E. coli and bacteria stated that the waves had depressed their growth as well as changing properties of the activities on the cells. Concern is that it could be the same to human cells. Effects on bacteria resistance. That was the issue. Just what I said to you. Effects on plant health. One of the features of 5G is that the MMW is particularly susceptible to being absorbed by plants and rain. Humans and animals alike consume plants as food source. But here's the other thing. They thought that if you plant a lot of trees around your house, you'd be protected by the 5G. Nope, so sorry, hate to tell you, but a new study, 5G survey, survives a critical test, the backcountry in America, and guess what they did? They can beam right through them woods, boy, and they'll tear you up no matter where you want to live. Jeez. Is this the one? I'm wondering. I think this is where, let's see. It seems like just yesterday that we were rocking the 3G connections and feeling pretty good about it. And this technology, after all, that normalized mobile video, pocket web surfing, etc. We see all that there. Yeah, this is where they did the test here. It beams through with no problem. They thought it was going to be a problem, that trees and stuff would be a problem, but it wasn't a problem. But I'm thinking this is where President Trump actually speaks about this to the farmers. No, it's not. That's not the article. I don't know if I have that up anymore. But anyway, President Trump was so proud of this when he signed this bill for the 5G technology. He says to the farmers, now, aren't you glad you elected me to be your president? You know, I'm so surprised at how many people really believe that elected officials are appointed by God. Was Hitler appointed by God? You know, I recall distinctly, this is why I know that the whole passage there that's being quoted from the New Testament is completely twisted. I need to really go back and look at that with you guys. But let me tell you something. Satan took Jesus up in a moment time, showed him all the kingdoms of the world that were then and that ever would be. And he says to Jesus, he said, these are all mine, and I do with them whatsoever I want. He said, you fall down and worship me, and I'll give it to you. Never any time did Yeshua ever disagree with him that they belonged to him. Okay? Think about that. Now here's the danger of everything. Everybody biting at the chomp to know biblically where this might fall. This is a conjecture. I don't say this is so, but it's very interesting. I was looking at Job in chapter 18. This is where Job is challenged by one of his friends. And I'll tell you, to me, it looks, I'm going to read it from King James first here. It looks to me as if it's a prophecy of the latter days here. All right? I've looked at this in, of course, King James. I've looked at this in Hebrew. I've looked at this even in the Septuagint. This is what Job was being told here. The jinn shall take him by the heel, and the robber shall prevail against him. The snare is laid for him in the ground, and a trap for him in the way. That's interesting right there. The snare is laid for him in the ground, and a trap for him is in the way, like a path, a road. Terror shall make him afraid on every side, and shall drive him to his feet. His strength shall be hunger bitten, and his destruction shall be ready at his side. Okay? It shall devour the strength of his skin. Even the firstborn of death shall devour his strength. Satan has come up with something that will devour the strength of your skin. Now, some people translate that word differently than skin. It's ord. Ord is what's used, and that is a common word for the word skin in Hebrew. All right? The Mamre version here translated it differently. They put on there, it shall devour the members of his body, but that's not true. They're using the word members. It doesn't say body here. It says Yachol bedai aoro. Okay? It will literally, it says it will eat. See? Bedai, it will eat oro of his skin. Okay? That's what you're seeing there. So it shall devour, which bedai is the word for strength, bedai, which that's specifically it will literally devour your skin. And it says his strength shall be, if you look at verse 12, his strength shall be hunger bitten, and destruction shall be ready at his side. It's really a very strange thing that this man is telling Job. Now, interestingly enough, you go to chapter 19, Job gives the famous prophecy speaking about the coming of the Messiah, where he says, and they translate that. It's kind of interesting how they translate that. I'll show you this. It's not actually written this way. Before I go there, let me show you something. Let me go back to this again. Verse 14, his confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle, and it shall bring him to the king of terrors. Now, that's not a good way to translate that. If we look at it over here in the Mamre, that wherein he trusteth shall be plucked out of his tent. Okay, it's so-so. So I decided to look at this Septuagint because, the King James does okay. His confidence shall be rooted out of his tabernacle. I didn't like the way they translated it either. And it doesn't mean that I'm right on everything, by no means. But I decided to look at this in the Septuagint, verse 14, because it literally is saying that what's happening to his skin causes him to leave his body. In other words, it's going to kill him, is what it's going to do in the long run. If you look at this in the Septuagint in verse 14, it literally says here, let health be utterly banished from his tabernacle. So, I would have to say that's a better translation, but then again, the Septuagint was based on a translation that we don't have, or an original Hebrew version that we don't have today. But they're saying here, let me just show you how it would read. Let's go to King James and look at it from that point of view there. It shall devour the strength of his skin, even the firstborn of death shall devour his strength. So he's showing you that Satan himself coming down here is the one that's going to devour it. And then we say, let health be utterly banished from his tabernacle. Okay? So his health is destroyed because of what happens to his skin. Now, Job makes the comment in chapter 19, they translate that, though the skin's though the skin worms of my body destroys this flesh, yet in my flesh I shall see God. Now it doesn't say worms though. That's actually just added. It's not in Hebrew like that. We don't have skin worms in Hebrew there. Let me kind of go over here to where we can look at it real quick just so you'll know that. Because Job is now answering this guy, because the man is prophesying what's going to happen. And what's interesting about the way Job says this is the fact that Job is not denying the fact that this is going to happen in the latter day. So Job responds to it, to what's being said. My bone cleaveth to my skin and to my flesh, and I am escaped with the skin of my teeth. That's, by the way, that's where that expression comes from, by the skin of your teeth. It comes from Job. Have pity upon me, O ye my friends, for the hand of God hath touched me. Why do you persecute me as God and are not satisfied with my flesh? Oh, that my words were written, oh, that they were inscribed in a book, that with an iron pen led they the graven in the rock forever. Now, let me get back. Here we go, right here. And when after my skin, this is, okay, now they translate it correctly here in the Hebrew here. And when after my skin, this is destroyed, then without my flesh shall I see God. Okay? Now, let me look at this. They just said that was something I didn't catch before either. Shari. Okay, wait a minute. They shouldn't have, I don't think they should have translated that without either in memory. It's kind of interesting how people translate that. It's right here, just so you'll know where it's at here. This part right here. This is, Bashar is your flesh. And from my flesh. See? Achaze olo. He would actually see him. He would see him from his flesh. Anyway, in my flesh I shall see God is what he's saying. But he's still dealing with the fact that there is coming a destruction that will begin in the skin. And no, it doesn't have the word worms. There's no such word there in this here. It's only assumed at that point there that we have in the King James. King James even has the word worms italicized if you look at that. So my question is, though, because of this being a destruction that starts from a devouring of the skin itself, and Satan being the author of it, and if we put this with the Septuagint for verse 14, let health be utterly banished from his tabernacle, that being his body, his tent, okay? Is that possibly a prophecy that was being made about what would happen in the days that we're living in? Because even in this case here, remember, yeah, we could say that this was a prophecy of Job in chapter 19, speaking of when Christ came the first time, but he could have also been talking about when Christ comes the second time. Anybody ever thought about that one? Anyway, I think it's just kind of interesting. I don't say it's so. I put it out there as a conjecture, but I just thought it would be something to share with you guys, see what you guys think about this. Pretty wild, I know. Close some of these windows here. Maybe we get a little bit better signal here. I actually posted all that already in the description for most of you guys, so you'll have that. We're living in a late hour, guys. Very, very late hour. And, you know, I just trust that what we're saying to you is a blessing to you. And just a trying time. And again, I want to ask you guys while I'm looking here at the chat room part. Anybody asked their pastors yet about the 5G technology or the Neom City, or what about all these evangelical leaders that are all sucked up to Rome? Anybody had the courage to ask their pastors about that? And like I said, it doesn't matter. I mean, I know there's some people that they use online church systems. That's okay. Ask your pastor there. You know, give the guy a chance, or the girl a chance, whoever happens to be the pastor there, give them a chance. See how they respond. I mean, we've got people that watch this broadcast that go to John Hagee's church. I know it because they've written me and told me that. You know, and I really hate to see what's happening there. You know, so, but ministers need to be confronted about this. It's a serious issue. And, you know, I mean, everything that President Trump is doing, a lot of people think it's great that he's doing these things. But, you know, I mean, either President Trump is just really blind to what's going on, or he knows about it. And I can't imagine this man, even from what I've seen in this documentary that I began to watch about his early life, and it shows both pro and people that are against him. But the Netflix I think they did a pretty good job thus far of what I've seen about him, because most of the people are very much for President Trump. But he was a very shrewd businessman, and you know. But nonetheless, the man was smart. President Trump is not just some country bumpkin. You know, I don't want you to think he's just some dumb guy. He was a smart man. He's a smart man. And he knows exactly which direction he's going in. He is a businessman. And unless he's just driven by blindness to make money, but again, I think he's aware of it. Making America great again? Well, you got to join up with Rome. That's what China noted as well. One of their own experts said that the Vatican will make the Silk Road to glow. That's one reason why you saw the Vatican's representative there, the Secretary of State, at the Bilderberg meeting. Now we're going to go in tomorrow. I'm going to share with you what's going on over in Estonia. If you want to become a citizen of Estonia, go right ahead. I wouldn't. I'd be too concerned about a beast system to begin with. But you know, I'm really seeing, even in this NEOM, I have a feeling that the way that this is going to be presented to the world by evangelical leaders is the mountain of God. This is the mountain of God, guys. Come and see it. You know? People are going to just totally overlook the fact that you're going into an AI, New World Order city. Let's go see where God met Moses. It's a danger, guys, very much. Anyway, we love you guys tremendously, and we thank you for those of you that are helping to support this broadcast. Even if you don't have that means, we love you, we appreciate you. Pray for us, share the video everywhere you possibly can. And check out Patreon. That's something you guys ought to do. Patreon.com/Israeli News Live. I will say things that I'm not going to say here. Of course, I say a whole lot here too. Don't kid yourself. I do say a lot here, but we're testing the water what we really can say over on Patreon. So join up with us over there. And if you haven't, check out Yana's Facebook page, Phoebe Danoon. She writes a lot of posts on there. She doesn't always get out and check all who's sending her friend requests, but she does. You can at least, I think you could still see her post. I don't think that they're not available to people that can. I think you can see them. And a lot of times we're posting also her writings now on Israeli News Live on the Facebook page. So check out both those places there. I'm Steve Benoon. You're watching Israeli News Live, Erev Tov, and a world of Ein Shalom. There is no peace, but it's going to look like a peace. That's going to be the deceiving part. I think people are really going to be so duped into what's coming that they're going to say, oh, we must have another 10 years or so. There used to be a famous thing I'd always hear amongst Baptist people. And when I would say, doesn't look like it's going to be much longer, they'd be like, oh, no, wait a minute, brother. No, I think we got another 50 years or so. People love this world too much. Anyway, Erev Tov, pray for my wife. She does need your prayers, and we do love you guys. Erev Tov. Thank you, moderators, as well. Shalom, shalom.